Okay, so I'm trying to do a video here to explain how to do short rows and sort of, I think, the most complicated part of it. So a lot of people, ignore my kids in the background, guys. A lot of people get confused about short rows because it just seems wrong. So you just have to kind of take it step by step. So the first thing it's going to tell you to do is to knit so far, okay? And then the most popular way to do a short row is to wrap and then turn. And literally you're just going to wrap your working yarn around a stitch. So the first thing you have to do is slide the next stitch onto your right hand needle, bring the yarn around it, and then put it back on the left hand needle. And then you can see how it's just kind of wrapped around there. Then you're going to turn your work. This is what confuses most people, because either you've been working in the round or you are not at the end of your row. And so it just seems wrong to turn it around. So just trust it. Turn it around, and now you're going to be looking at the back. You can kind of see how the yarn is choking that stitch there. You're going to start working back for however far it says to. So usually the first time it'll tell you how many stitches to go back. And then once you're there, it'll tell you to wrap and turn again. And you do the same thing. You pass the stitch, you pass the yarn around it, and you put the stitch back where it ought to be. You can see how it's kind of choking the stitch there. And we're going to turn it back around. And we're going to knit back. And so often now, what your pattern will say is to knit within so many stitches of the wrapped stitch. And the nice thing about where I am here on this pattern is that I switched colors. So my wrapped stitch is actually a different color than the stitch that, or the wrap is different than the stitch. That's not always going to be the case, but you'll always be able to see both kind of this gap here as well as the wrap on the right side. So I'm going to knit to, let's say, 2 stitches before that stitch. And you'll be able to see it. So here I am. I've got 1, 2 stitches and then my wrapped stitch. If I kept going, let's actually do that. And you get here, it feels tight because this wrap is around it. It would feel different. You can kind of, again, you can see that there's a bigger gap there than there normally would be. So sometimes it's easy to catch when you've messed up and gone too far to the wrap, because you'll all of a sudden, it'll be hard to get into the stitch. So I've got 1, 2 stitches, then my wrapped stitch, and I'm going to pretend like now I'm supposed to wrap again. So I knit within 2 stitches of the wrap again, and I'm going to turn it around and head back and do that again. I'll purl to within 2 stitches of my wrapped stitch. And on this side it's a little harder to see because of your purl bumps, but if you turn it around, you'll be able to see the wrap on the front. Sometimes that's how I have to do it. So we are going to go back here. Oops, I even went too far. So here's my wrapped stitch, 1, 2 stitches within it. And I'm going to wrap again, turn around, and prepare to go back.